Welcome to Detective Diaries, brought to you by Private Detectives Answers Investigation. If you're captivated by the art of deduction, the thrill of solving the unsolvable, or the enigmatic world of private investigation, you have just found your new favourite podcast. Detective Diaries are where secrets are unravelled and the truth is always a clue away. Presented by Private Detective Answers Investigation. Each episode contains offbeat conversations about the real people involved in investigation.
Welcome to Detective Diaries, the podcast where we explore the real stories, science and psychology behind investigation. I'm your host, Harry Watts. A detective once told me people lie in person, but online they reinvent themselves. We delve today into the world of cyberpsychology, how our behaviour changes when we move online, and what that means for investigators trying to separate truth from fiction in the digital age. After all, every case has clues, but these days many of them are digital. Joining me is Professor Emma Shortis, a leading cyberpsychologist at the London Metropolitan University. Her research focuses on online behaviour, harassment, identity, and the psychology that drives both victims and perpetrators of digital crime. For 2 decades, Emma has been at the forefront of research into online abuse, cyberstalking, and digital harassment, exploring how people communicate, deceive, and sometimes inflict harm in the digital world. Professor Shortis is a co-founder of the National Centre for Cyber-Stalking Research, one of the first dedicated teams to study the psychological impact of online harassment and the behaviour of offenders. What makes her perspective so valuable for investigators is that she bridges 2 worlds, the human and the digital. She looks beyond the data and the devices to the psychology behind them, why people act differently online, how identity can be manipulated, and how empathy and ethics come into play when working in this space. Professor Short, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. So cyberpsychology is probably a term that perhaps is known to some in the educational world, but to those who don't, can you define it a little bit for us and tell us more about it?
Yeah, I mean, there are various definitions, but I tend to think of it as the study of how humans engage with digital technologies, how they affect our thoughts, feelings and emotions, how our identities are influenced by them, but also how the environment itself, once you're through the screen, shapes our behaviour.
Fascinating. So it's obviously the psychological aspects have been around for quite some time now being developed, but cyber psychology is still relatively new in that sense in terms of its definitions perhaps.
Yeah, it's certainly newer, but all of the old standard sort of theories of human behaviour, they all work there because you've just got human beings sort of online, but their behaviour is often amplified or obscured, but it's still human beings that you're working with.
Fascinating. I mean, I've actually been quite fortunate to spend a little bit of time with you before speaking today, and obviously this sounds like your life's work. You're so invested in this, and that's really fascinating and lovely to see, because of course some people may want to touch upon the subject, some people may see it as something that's a bit new and the old methods are best sometimes perhaps, but no, this is your life's work. This is something that you've been studying for years, and obviously you still enjoy researching. Yes. Clearly.
Yes. Well, I mean, we're fortunate in this field in that it's so fast evolving. Every day's a school day. It's not as if things are staying the same. So you're continually engaged with, new capabilities, new scare stories that might hit the headlines that you haven't thought about, but also, going through life stages, being a parent and the daughter of an older parent, how technologies impact on us or become unavailable to us at different stages in our lives. I just think there is such a rich theme. It will keep me going certainly beyond retirement.
Well, that's wonderful. I really look forward to delving into more on this. So just before we sort of get into some of the other topics though, it's something that's ever expanding. Do you think that is a positive and a negative thing? Because of course research is one of those aspects where it is constantly evolving. You constantly have to look at the new topic or the new line of research to delve into. because it's cyber and technology is of course evolving, is there a race perhaps here to get research up to the standard of where the technology is, or are we on a back foot here as well?
We're always going to be on a back foot. To get any research peer reviewed and published, you're going to be at least 2 years behind
Right.
the innovation of it. But I think there's a danger as well in chasing the next shiny thing. As a society and as researchers, I think we do need some stability. If we just chase the next shiny thing the whole time, where are we consolidating? Where are we getting an overview?
Yeah, that's very right. I mean, the chasing the next shiny thing is, I think it's such a poignant look at the materialistic aspects of technology. The new iPhone every year, or the new laptop, or the new projector. We're in an educational setting here, so it could be the same thing. So yeah, that is quite interesting, and I imagine keeping up with that is probably quite stressful at times.
Yeah. I mean, you can't possibly keep up with it. No. I do try and keep up with it, but I'm very conscious of the fact that there are whole seams I'm not aware of, and that's why I try very hard to build collaborations and to build a network and to be in touch and share as much as I know with everyone else, hoping that they will share what they know with me. So there's a real dialogue going on all the time, because one person cannot possibly cover all bases.
No matter how much they may think.
No.
So obviously we're talking about cyber, we're talking about technology. The internet is obviously there. It's not just a tool, it's essentially an environment now, a digital environment, and again, ever changing. How does that environment change people's behaviours, and does that make it easier for them to commit crimes, do you think?
I think it does. I mean, the thing about the internet is it removes social friction.
Right.
There isn't resistance. You don't have to get anywhere. You don't get put off by the way someone seems to be looking at you. You don't experience embarrassment or social disapproval in the same sort of way.
Right.
So the friction's removed, as is the risk of being caught if you are actually involved in transgressive behaviour, because yes, there are new laws now. And there are policies on platforms. Platforms often don't stick to their policies. But with no social feedback and no visible consequence, and no physical risk,
Yes.
To yourself, it's much easier just to go for it.
Right.
Whether that's in expressing opinions you might never express to other people to their faces, whether it's to take risks that may be criminal. All of those things become much easier to slide into. So this has reshaped behaviour to some extent. If we just think of the heat of debate that you get online.
It's certainly a mask, isn't it, in that sense of the persona I am perhaps forging here and manipulating is something that is very different to how they operate in real life. The person who's the nice Jim from the office, the username, might be someone awful online who's subscribed into hate speech or whatever it might be. So yes, very much a face, isn't it, of identity that's providing them with anonymity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's do you think though it perhaps, kind of using the example that I just said, does it give an excuse for people to perhaps develop a second persona, or is it perhaps their true selves coming out online, if you will?
Well, I mean, this is a really interesting one. Some people feel more themselves online than they do offline. Some people do produce another personality, and they are consciously doing that. And they are being someone very different online. And, then other people are different online, but they're not conscious of the shift in their behaviour and their personality. So everyone is different. But it's a very good place. I mean, before we get onto the risks and things like, sort of theories about why it might be escalating crime, it's also a good thing in that you can experiment. So for adolescents, for example, you can try out being you're confident, you can try out being sort of sassy, you can try out things that don't come to you naturally in your physical environment and see how it feels and work into it. And there is something I think called, is it the Proteus effect?
Well, that's testing me a bit.
But it's the one where if you try to be it, you can become it. So if you behave more confidently and you get feedback to that persona, which validates that, you become more confident. So in a lot of ways, developmentally, it can be a very positive thing.
Yes. I mean, I know a lot of what we're going to talk about is perhaps the risk and the dangers, but we should say, as you rightly put, there is quite a good aspects of the research. Again, we're in an educational setting here. Fantastic use to be able to have resources which perhaps were never there and out of reach now. But of course, with that becomes misinformation.
Yes.
And again, it's kind of that yin and yang, isn't it? That we're both sides. We talked about an individual, but I wonder if is there a group mentality as well? I'm kind of thinking about the particulars of insurrections, riots, and so forth, where that herd mentality can come in from one person posting online to say, let's revolutionize, rise up, if you will. Does that change in terms of the psychological elements we're looking at, or is it again just the kind of bandwagon?
I mean, it's old theory, but expressed through new means. So you get things like group polarization, group identity, where what happens if you're expressing a really extreme view, there's a real diffusion of responsibility and a need to belong to that group. So I will go with the herd because I'm identifying with the group more strongly than I am with myself at this point. But also the group is accountable rather than me.
Right.
So it's an old set of theories, probably kind of born out in the 60s and 70s in social psychology, but you see it played out in an almost kind of perfect illustration that the model itself you could never see played out in the physical world.
Sure.
But even if you're just watching the data move, you kind of, if you actually modelled it against those sort of flow charts of those models, you would literally see it playing out.
Right. Fascinating. So again, the kind of demonstration of the old research still applying, just in a new format, if you will, of the online space.
I mean, I really honestly do believe the online environment mirrors and amplifies human behaviour. There are some changes for sure, but if we were going to use a really kind of gross kind of statement, to kind of like hit it all like that, that's the phrase I'd go for.
Interesting. It's interesting, isn't it? Because again, even though it's an ever expanding and ever new topic, we can still find these ways of explaining it because behaviour like that has existed. It's just got a new platform now to operate with. So it is fascinating. Do you think then people can, in that space, slide into offending almost by accident, or does it happen really psychologically?
I really do, and I'm going to look at my notes here because I go off on all sorts of tangents, and I'm trying to stick to the point.
Of course.
There's something called digital drift.
Okay.
Which is where there's a gradual slide from curiosity to wrongdoing. Okay. So sort of it's a soft descent where you kind of get engaged and you've got this frictionless thing, you're exploring, you're pushing further. And it's some work that's been applied to things like youth hackers, which are quite well researched now.
Okay.
It's quite interesting. And what happens is the hierarchy or sense of hierarchy that achieves pushes people more and more into kind of breaking more and more boundaries because, again, you've got this group kind of dynamic going on. You've got the digital drift, you've got the excitement of breaking in and validation from that from your network.
Right.
And we do know for certain that, sort of adolescents in particular, the approval from peers is the most valuable to them.
Right.
Not from teachers.
No.
Not from adults, not from parents, but having peer status is incredibly important, and this is where you find your peers as well.
Interesting.
And there's also another theory that I think is really usefully applied to the online space, and that is routine activity theory, and it kind of predicts crime. And it kind of says for crime to happen, you need three things. You need a motivated offender, so a curious person who's gone down that rabbit hole. You need a suitable target, and there are so many online who are unsecured, loads of information about them, visible targets. But the third thing you need is what's called an absence of a capable guardian.
Okay.
And online, there is no visible policing.
Of course.
It's more regulated now than it was, but it's really still the Wild West, I think, in many ways. If you're technically skilled, you can stay under the radar.
And it's perhaps even more poignantly demonstrated with the new Online Safety Acts, restricting access to explicit content for young people, and of course the rise of VPNs from that is kind of a way around it, isn't it?
And I mean, in some ways, you've got, you're raising kind of like a moral awareness out there, aren't they? You're kind of making people consciously choose to circumvent something because there is a stop sign. For the majority, I don't know if it's the majority actually, but for a lot of people, they will stop there, or the message has been made that this is a stop sign because this is considered transgressive.
Right.
And then it's your decision, do you circumvent it?
I don't know why, but I had the vision in my head of going back to sort of sociological studies of the mods and rockers, and how I could potentially apply that in the online space now, as having groups of very differing opinions and walks of life then clashing over a general view, if you will, or a public view about something, and then just diving into each other, and not having as you say, the sort of police there, which again, I think about mods and rockers, there was an increase of police presence in those kind of eras. In the online space, you would call it moderators, but where are they? If they're not present, they're in the shadows, aren't they?
Yeah.
They don't exist.
So I think it's easy to drift into crime.
Interesting. So at what point then does perhaps trying to police the online world, the ordinary boundaries of watching, become surveillance, and are we leaning more towards that again? And obviously the current topics of conversation being the new digital ID, of course, and I've seen, I think the most recent article was about 2.8 million petitions or signees against that, as I understand it. But because we're moving in that technological direction, has it already been crossed? Are we in the purpose of an online space being surveyed too much, or is it not enough still? As we've just said, is there issues of people who aren't being looked at, who are demonstrating negative psychological behaviour online?
I think this is a really interesting one, because we've given our data away and allowed ourselves to be surveilled by industry and tech without a second thought. We've given it all away already. But any state involvement, people feel very differently about.
Yes.
Because the danger is, if we do have access to digital identities, what are the parameters of the data they have access to, and how will technology engage with them? Because we've given it away already.
Yes.
So there has to be an intelligent and transparent discussion about what we've let go and what they want to see. But the minute you engage in sort of, state surveillance like that, you are dependent on the current regime staying as it is, and it won't.
No, and because it's ever expanding, ever changing again.
So, I think we've crossed the line in what we've given away. But I think it's important that we have a discussion that's not patronising to us as the general public about what they have, what they want, and what it means.
Yes.
Because I do think there's some sort of infantilising going on. That we're being told we're being given very simple messages about it, but actually we are, as a society, quite technically informed. You think, can we all talk about this like grown-ups, please?
Yes, exactly. Rather than it just being a statement, let's delve into it more. And I think you're so right, because it's something probably users might think about after the fact, but probably don't tend to, is when you accept the terms and conditions. There are 2,000 pages of it, or whatever it may be, the Facebooks, the Instagrams of this world, and we simply don't look at them. We simply hit accept, and then of course that's it.
No.
There's no getting that back, is there?
No, we don't.
At that
and
point,
it's never one box you're ticking. All of those sort of, I can't remember the term for it, but all those cookies with partners.
Yes.
That mean the minute you click it, you're actually engaging with about, 360
yes.
organisations, not just one.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And again, it's that kind of backroom. There's no discussion on, oh, this is how it is. This is what you're signed up for. There's no sort of real, I don't know, here's an email telling you what exactly you're giving away and who you're exactly giving it to. Because of course, I think if many people had such an email or were informed to such a degree, no one would probably be using any of these sites and applications.
No.
So no.
No, it's interesting. I mean, it was never published, but I remember reviewing a paper once. I hope it once it was published one day. They tried to develop a scale about paranoia, but technical paranoia, about, obviously IT, and they've got a general public group, and they've got a group of cybersecurity experts, and the data was just wild because they were only, the data analysts and the cybersecurity experts understood the real risks, and they were just kind of, all the scores were reaching the ceiling the whole time. They've got no fluctuation in the data from that group. So that was one of the problems I think they were having getting it published, because the data was not undulating.
Right.
There was no normal distribution because they were all just panicked, and rightly so.
Yes. And again, it's kind of that rush to get it out there, I suppose, before 2 years later, it's antiquated because there's something else that comes along. So, no, fascinating. How do we start learning this behaviour then, in the sense of, what exactly? How do those behaviours get on in terms of online spaces? Technology now is being introduced to young people far earlier than it ever has. So is the behaviour learnt? We talked about peers, obviously, and the need of approval, and perhaps trying to justify it through that means. But is it something that we learn through perhaps the technology, or is it something that we learn from others utilising the technology?
That's interesting, and I've got a theory I want to look into. This is not based in any evidence at all. But my thinking is around the fact that in families very early on, children are surveilled by their parents, location trackers, checking their search histories and so on. And that's often been driven out of fear because of predators online and predators on the street.
Right.
And it's a protective and loving thing to do. But from the word go, from the word they're engaging in the digital environment, most children are exposed fully to their parents in terms of their location and their activity, and they become very used to that and experience it as loving concern. So what does that do to someone in terms of their expectations of others' transparency and their access to all their data, and their acceptance or tolerance of being watched and controlled by others? And I think this generation is different from others because of that.
Right.
And I really want to explore that further. But I think the message is, it's not necessarily wrong to do it, but there has to be a dialogue while it's happening about trust, about consent, about why it's happening and what it means, because, love isn't looking.
Sure.
And we do take these early experiences of relationships and attachments into our later attachments. And being surveilled and watched by a new partner you might meet may mean something entirely different than loving concern. So I really want to explore that area and talk to people about it, and how they feel about it.
It is an interesting, from an investigator's point of view, I can't speak to how many cases, it's a large significant number of when we're dealing with mobile forensics or assessing someone's online presence, that you will see applications like the Life 360 or whatever it may be, where partners are constantly tracking each other.
Yes.
And I can't help but feel like we're, as you say, perhaps there's this acceptance of, oh, I've already given it over, it's there.
Yes.
Therefore, it's not new to me.
Yes.
It's not a concern. Whereas those who are perhaps not necessarily forced into it, or they give it away because it makes the other person happy in that sense, then they've coercion, exactly. And it's fascinating because, again, 10, 15 years ago, we wouldn't have been having this conversation. We wouldn't have been having this tracking.
And this is why I think technology should mirror more human behaviour. AI is there, it has the capability. Why aren't people designing things that create things like dynamic consent, where it picks up the exchanges have dropped or they're all one way, and consent is just not renewed? It tails out as the actual physical exchange is tailing out.
Yes.
These apps can track this kind of thing, and they can mirror our intent. And I just wish more was being done like that. It's like, for example, if you have blocked someone or you have defriended them, still, there'll be a reason for that. And still, Facebook will then pop them up as a friend suggestion.
Yes.
You think, come on, you've got all the technology in the world, you're collecting all our data. We are to some extent being manipulated by you. Can you not do us the courtesy?
At the very least.
So I do get really frustrated with it.
You're so right. So, and then I suppose the other issue comes from, as we've relinquished that control, that there isn't going to be a coming back from, okay, I have blocked someone, and as you say, you're getting suggested to go back and make friends with them, even if you shout as loud as you can, because it's controlled at the Silicon Valleys, the upper echelons, or whoever it may be, you will never be heard.
Yeah.
And I suppose that could almost mirror a person's case in real life, where they perhaps feel like there is an injustice where, I'm shouting as loud as I can, I'm not being heard. And that's happening on even larger scales on the internet now.
Yeah, for sure.
Fascinating.
So if you can hear the background voices, you're getting a flavour of university life here at London Metropolitan.
A thriving place. It's a wonderful environment here. And I suppose it takes me back to roots a little bit as a former university student. So it's nice to see everyone enjoying themselves.
Okay. Well, I've got a question for you.
Please.
Over the last, say, 10 years, 5 years, has your investigative toolkit changed much? Because we've got open source data, we've got all of this stuff that we're talking about. How's it changed for you?
Yes, it's quite interesting, because I would say more so than ever, a lot of the digital footprint is available to us than it has been before. Whether that be through social media, whether it be through internet history, mobile phone forensics, the sort of toolkits that we use, there is more of it to look at now. And the way I look at this is kind of like the storage on your phone.
Okay.
It used to be that you would have a small handheld phone and it would have the SIM card and the phone would work. Now you've got phones which have more storage space than the average computer. I think an iPhone now goes up to 1 terabyte or something ridiculous. And there's so much data there available that you're not going to get from 10 hours of surveillance, 20 hours of surveillance. It's all there in one hand. So the toolkit in terms of how we look at and analyse that data is certainly changed. Forensic software, for example, a lot of what we use is actually in-house because it comes from open source options, and we build up and use it and create something. But social media is a big one. I think one of our quickest cases was something around 20 seconds. We had a company phone us up, and it was about a gentleman who was claiming sick pay. And they questioned it. They said, he's been off for 6 weeks. We're pretty sure this is wrong. This is illegitimate. Can we go find this out? We went on his social media page and we found a plane trip to Bali within 3 seconds, I think. And it's him there literally on the plane on a video. So of course we phone the company and we say, sorry, this is the truth. We're not going to charge you, obviously.
Yes.
And perhaps let's have a discussion on the due diligence. Now, I think everyone's got a right to privacy, and having your social media stalked by a company, to me, is actually wrong. Yeah. However, with that in mind, it probably could have taken someone just a few seconds to have a look, maybe even just to have a look at his profile, to check in on him, to send a message or something. They would have found that information out themselves. Yes. But no, to come back to your point, how it's changed, it's the digital footprint, because again, with surveillance and with human interaction, it's only part of the coin. How someone interacts online, how they may go and search for something, provides elements as to their motivation. So how we can delve into that data and look at it is quite important to a case. And again, the tools to do that are we have to change all the time. Again, to reference a smartphone, the securities on that are changing all the time. Now, again, obviously, when we utilise these kind of techniques is when we have consent and things to do so. Now, we've probably seen the cases in America where you've got the federal government versus a technology company about gaining access. And so those cases are very interesting to me, and you've got such a large conversation happening on something that is quite important, which is privacy at the end of the day. But certainly when we have the consent, when we need to do so, there's quite a few techniques we can use to get under the hood of these devices and get to the raw data, even deleted data, because of course when someone knows something's gone wrong, they tend to try and set fire to it or throw it in the bin as quickly as we can, and we have to go and grab that back before it's lost.
Yes. Well, that's the thing about digital evidence, isn't it? It's so, it can be so transitory.
Absolutely. And interestingly as well, I mean, we get many people who ask us to do a background check on them and they'll look at their history and so forth. And I remember we had this MP, obviously can't say names, come into our office one day, and he was looking to go higher up into power, sort of local at the time. And he said, right, I want you to go do a deep dive on my history. I'm a good guy. Okay. I haven't said anything bad on Twitter, now X, so you won't find anything. Took that attitude. And then when he came back into the office, we had probably about 100 pages of all the worst things one can possibly say online, which of course were deleted in his eyes, but were found on a server halfway across the world, saved many eons ago by those people and techniques and machines which automatically do this. And not to off-put any listeners, but once you say something, even if you think you delete it, unfortunately it's probably still out there, backed up somewhere on some server across the other side of the world. So we can try and look at that data and get that back, but it can be a longer process as well, I should say. Surveillance work, you can find your answers very quickly, whereas digital footprints, you might have, I don't know, a company you're looking at, that's 50 to 100 computers. So that's a lot of time that you need to spend when you perhaps doing it another way could be quicker. So it depends on the circumstances as to what tools we use, but it's certainly changed, and keeping on top of it now is so important, because again, surveillance, if a camera breaks, you can go and get another one. If you have to go look into a piece of technology that's got the higher ends of security or other protections, you're going to need someone who's even more qualified or has even more advanced tools to do so. So there are layers to it as well.
So it's not just the manner of the investigation, it's some of the jobs you're getting asked to do. So being asked, is that a regular thing, being asked to clean up someone's digital footprint?
Absolutely. It's more so ever than now than it used to be, because again, that ever expanding digital world and their perhaps sometimes reluctance to get into it as well is, I have to go and do this. Can we make sure that I'm safe? And of course, 9 times out of 10, most people are. But in the case that I just used, some people again have that unfortunate view that it's so far gone, it's out of sight, it doesn't exist anymore, when actually put in front of your face, here it is, here's what you said a decade ago, and you wouldn't want people reading that now, would you?
No.
Fascinating.
And can I ask you about the flip side of that?
Yes, of course.
So is it possible to create a fake profile? And if you think someone is targeting you with a fake profile, how would they detect that? Are there any really good tips?
I think the way to look at it is kind of like a phishing scam. If you're getting a message from someone who you believe, from the offset, let's say it looks like your friend, for example, simply popping them a message outside of that, whether it be Facebook or something, sending them a text message, say, oh, I've got a message from you. Was that you? I'm sure most people 9 times out of 10 say, yeah, it is me, don't worry, nothing to fear. But it's always language, I would say. Okay. Because setting up a fake, if I want to become Donald Trump, to use an example, it probably would be quite easy for me to create a profile and to put the things in place. The only thing that might be missing is the sort of viewership and the activity and the subscribers, if you will, because of course, one of the most well-known, if not the most well-known person there. But how I speak and how I act in an online presence would be up for debate. Because I don't think I could do a very good job of pretending to be Donald Trump. So that kind of language aspect and behaviourisms is the thing that is difficult. That's probably the easier to detect. How someone creates a fake profile, hard. Because phishing scams, for example, the only real way I would say is use reverse image searching. And that's how we tend to find a lot of fake accounts, because they'll use an image which has been used in these phishing scams or similar instances, and then you can backtrace it from there and you can demonstrate that to a client. But even still, the human nature of psychology is so interesting. We had a client once who was a phishing scam, and we showed him that it was a phishing account, and he was so in belief that he was talking to a real person that we couldn't pop this bubble of belief in his head. He was so intrinsic, this must be real, but you've got to look again. And it's so interesting, no matter what we demonstrated and showed him, he was of such belief that he was talking to this person who was real, that he wasn't willing to listen to anyone else's views on that. So, but yes, I mean, to anyone listening, definitely do your research, ask another source, use reverse image search as well. Definitely have a look at the images. I would say that's the point, and then have a look at the behaviour of the person who's speaking with you as well.
I think those are really good tips. And again, I think, you know, with a little bit of information like the stuff you've given us, you know, it really empowers people, because I'm very conscious of things like cultural shifts in things like film and television, where I would say one of the modern bogeymen is the fake profile attack.
Yes.
Where someone malicious approaches you as someone apparently harmless. So many films, so many TV series are built around this now, and I think it does create a real panic.
Yes. You're so right, because you, on one side you get the whole romanticism of, oh, I've met someone online and now we're together, and that's fantastic. It works in wonderful ways. It works in the total opposite. And having due diligence of perhaps thinking twice about a message or what you send to someone. You know, I hear far more often than I'd like now the conversations about people meeting up on dating apps and so forth. And rightfully, they will send their friends a text message to say, I'm going here tonight, you know, I'm going to be here at this time. You know, that's brilliant, that's wonderful. It's a shame we've got to that point where there isn't this element of trust of, you know, you can verify who somebody is through their online presence, or there's a way for you to easily determine who you're speaking to is genuine. And that is a scary environment. And to me personally, I think as an investigator, it's only going to get worse because the tools for us are expanding. Obviously AI, which I'm sure we're going to touch upon, ever increasing. Tools are applied to the criminals as well. And they'll use it to develop their own means. And
well, they're the early adopters.
Yes, absolutely. You know, they'll find, if it's a wonderful piece of technology, they'll take it first. They'll find a way to make it corrupt, and then it becomes a game of that sort of law enforcement catching up as well in trying to combat that. So I can certainly see from, you know, perhaps an educational point of view, we talked about policies. It's got to be so difficult to keep up. So, Professor Short, it's been wonderful speaking with you. And I'm looking at the time here thinking, I have engagements later on. I just want to cancel the whole lot and continue speaking with you, quite frankly. We kind of like to end episodes talking about the sort of next generation, how people can get involved and things like that. Obviously, you're a professor and your work has been here for a number of years. What perhaps is your message for anyone wanting to explore these realms of cyber psychology, or want to hear more from you? What perhaps can they go and do and listen to and read about?
Well, I've got papers published, but they're really boring and often behind paywalls, unfortunately, because that's how academic publishing works. I don't know. I should do some more podcasts. I'm always open for people to get in touch. I think if you're interested in this area, doing a psychology degree, check out whether they're doing a cyber psychology module. London Metropolitan does.
Indeed.
You know, and it's because I think it is fascinating, but also you will find in this community in cyber psychology, because it's quite a young field, there are so many people who are really generous with knowledge sharing, and are open to conversations, you know, and would answer questions. So, you know, I've got stuff out there that's probably around if you Googled me and you wanted to read about bits where I've given commentary. But yeah, I think just look around, you know, check out some of the BPS websites, British Psychological website for cyber psychology, and yeah, just do a bit of exploring, because it's a really exciting field, and it's because it's young again, you can make it your own. You can pursue the interests you have in the online environment. There isn't a standard.
So many avenues to explore.
So many avenues.
Fantastic. Thank you again for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ellie Merton from Guildford Shakespeare Company. Come and listen to me talk all things GSC and murder mystery. We've performed in stately homes, in castles, and even on a Boeing 747. Listen in on Detective Diaries.
Get involved. Detective Diaries is interactive, which involves you, the listener. Do you have a case you'd like discussed? A burning question about investigative life? Send an email to podcast@private-detectives.co.uk or reach out via social media. You may hear your story featured in an upcoming episode. Don't forget to leave your contact details. The email address is in the show notes.
We hope you enjoyed today's podcast, brought to you by Answers Investigation and UK Fingerprint. If you've enjoyed our conversation and want to learn more about the fascinating world of investigations, be sure to check out Private Detectives Answers Investigation. Their experienced team offers a wide range of discreet and professional services, helping you find the answers you need with integrity and expertise. If you're interested in fingerprint analysis or require specialist fingerprint services, don't miss UK Fingerprint. As one of the leading fingerprint companies in the UK, they provide everything from identification to background checks, working with individuals, businesses, financial institutions, and gambling companies. To find out more, visit www.private-detectives.co.uk, that's a minus sign, and www.ukfingerprint.co.uk. These are your go-to resources for investigative solutions and fingerprint expertise. You can call their office on 020 7158 0332. Thanks once again for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious and keep seeking the truth.